This is the story of the British Empire, seen in colour for the first time. It's history's biggest empire. At its peak in 1919, the British Empire controls a quarter of the Earth's land and almost 500 million people. In Africa, the Far East, and India, the jewel in the crown. On this empire, it's said, the sun never sets. Imperial trade brings prosperity to Britain. But while British colonialists enjoy the fruits of British rule, the colonised often suffer. And with World War II come demands for self-determination. Gandhi challenges Britain's grip on India. And World War exhausts Britain, leaving her bankrupt. British dominance fades. Revolts and insurgencies tear the empire. But a young new queen helps reinvent it. This is the British Empire, as you've never seen it before. Seated in the left corner, reviews the British Army's senior regiment, the Life Guards, at Windsor. Her empire is growing. Britain is embarking on another war of expansion, this time in South Africa. They'll be fighting the Boers, descendants of Dutch settlers, for land, gold, and diamond mines. The troopship Roslyn Castle leaves Southampton. Cameramen from the Warwick Trading Company will follow the action. At Port Elizabeth in the Eastern Cape, crowds greet Imperial forces. For this campaign, the Empire musters 400,000 men from across the globe. These Indian soldiers are serving in the medical corps. Others are Australian, like these mounted riflemen in Cape Town. The British drafts local Zulu herders to deliver army supplies by ox train. A victory will give the Crown complete control of South Africa. This film of British infantrymen digging trenches on the edge of Boer territory is some of the earliest surviving footage from a war zone. The Empire expects a rapid victory. But just after British lancers cross the Modder River, a Boer attack kicks off a string of bloody battles. The war turns ugly, costing 22,000 Imperial troops and 6,000 Boer soldiers their lives. Outnumbered and outgunned, the Boers resort to guerrilla tactics. To crush their resistance, Imperial forces destroy land and farms. Boer men, women and children are held in prototype concentration camps, which are overcrowded and filthy. 26,000 Boer civilians die in them. And 12,000 local Africans in Boer territory suffer the same fate. But the public at home never sees images like these. In 1902, troops leave South Africa as the Boers surrender their land to the British. It's the final colony that the Empire will secure through conflict. Crowds in London welcome the city volunteers home. South Africa brings new wealth to an empire already enjoying the riches of India. It's known as the Raj, Sanskrit for ruler. Britain has run things here since the mid-18th century, first through the East India Company, and since the 1850s by direct crown rule. Home to 250 million people and rich in natural resources, India is called Britain's jewel in the crown. In 1911, new British King George V and Queen Mary visit Delhi. In a Durbar, Persian for grand meeting, the king becomes Emperor of India. No expense is spared. It's described as the grandest extravaganza of the Raj. 50,000 troops and platoons of bejeweled elephants dazzle 250,000 spectators. Britain's top dozen cameramen film the event, with orders to keep a respectful distance. It's a landmark in cinematic news coverage. The king accepts expressions of fealty from nearly every Indian noble and thousands of the country's gentry. In deference, each bows 3 times, taking care not to give offence by turning their backs as they walk away. But the wealthy Maharaja of Baroda bows only once. He then turns his back on his emperor, swings his cane, and, it is said, laughs. The incident makes headlines at home. The prince apologizes, pleading nervous confusion. As a powerful ally of the Raj, he is not rebuked by George V. And a few years later, the king gives Sayajirao III, Maharaja of Baroda, a knighthood. The empire needs to keep India on side. Britain recruits thousands of Indian soldiers who do battle in Europe starting in 1914, when Britain goes to war with Germany. They have a reputation as tough professional fighters. In November 1915, newsmen, including Geoffrey Malins, shown here, spent 2 weeks filming these Indian soldiers for cinema audiences back home. Having fought alongside British troops, they're now at the rear. But duty still calls, making trench periscopes, sharpening blades, digging trenches, and deploying barbed wire. Despite the winter chill, there's still time to think of home. A field becomes a venue for a performance of a southern Indian dance, where soldiers swirl their traditional swords. And the freezing mud doesn't deter them from staging a wrestling match. These soldiers continue the tradition of the once famous Sikh army, the Khalsa. Here, the 47th Sikh Regiment present their bayonets to British command to touch as a symbol of loyalty. And the 58th Vaughan's Rifles march by while officers take the salute. In World War I, 75,000 Indian soldiers will die for the Empire. As the war in Europe spreads, the border of a German colony in Africa becomes a new front. Far south of European battlefields, Royal Flying Corps pilots patrol the line between British East Africa, now Kenya, and German East Africa, modern-day Tanzania. Imperial troops are here because Germany has attacked the British colony to divert resources from Europe. These locally recruited Askaris, Arabic for policemen, make up the King's African Rifles. Their officers are mostly British and white. A newsreel films military exercises, an Askari drill and British artillery bombardment. continues until the armistice in 1918. 10,000 soldiers and 100,000 local Africans are killed. Britain and the Allies win the war. In 1919, at the Palace of Versailles, cavalry lined the route as delegates arrived to negotiate a lasting peace. On May the 27th, Lieutenant Victor Cubes of the US Army films an appearance by British Prime Minister Lloyd George on the left, Italian Prime Minister Orlando, French Premier Clemenceau, and American President Woodrow Wilson on the right. The German delegates are taken to sign the surrender documents inside the palace's Great Hall of Mirrors. The Versailles Treaty does not resolve the conflicts that caused the war, but it does strip Germany of its colonies and hands them to the Allies. The pact reframes the world and expands British territory to its greatest ever size. Britain now has control of people, land, business and trade on a scale that brings it enormous wealth and power. The empire is at its peak. In the 1920s, London, as ever, is the bustling commercial hub of the British Empire. In northwest London, workmen break ground for a huge project. They're building a complex of pavilions, gardens, and an immense stadium for an exhibition to show off the fruits of empire. A year later, on the 23rd of April 1924, King George V and Queen Mary arrive at the brand new Empire Stadium. Later, it will be renamed Wembley Stadium. For the first time ever, the BBC's fledgling radio service broadcasts the King speaking.
Come here today to the tree, when the purpose announcing that British Empire exhibition.
He has encouraging words for the Empire's future. Visitors can tour thousands of exhibits. Plus, there's an amusement park for children. On one June day, a record-breaking 300,000 visitors enjoy this display of the Empire's assets. The King and Queen tour a replica of an African village. Ashanti nobles from the Gold Coast demonstrate carving and weaving. The royal couple amaze onlookers by taking a ride on a miniature railway. Later, in a downpour, sodden crowds listen as the Prince of Wales, later King Edward VIII, closes the exhibition, proclaiming it a huge success. The exhibition brings the glory of the Empire home to Britain, and along with that glory comes substantial wealth. The River Thames in London is the centre of British trade with the Empire. In July 1921, King George V sails on the royal yacht Rover to open a new multi-million-pound dock. 9 years in the building, it bears the King's name and is to be the centrepiece of imperial trade, suiting an empire built on sea power. In 1925, this